Chapter 11 of Princess Mary's Gift Book. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Linda Jenner. Princess Mary's Gift Book, Chapter 11, True Spartan Hearts, by Beatrice Harraden. In times of war, the Spartan women used to say to their husbands and sons, "Return with your shield or on it," meaning that they must either conquer or die. There was no affection or indulgence shown towards the warriors who survived a defeat, for loyalty to the state was thought of more account than personal loss, and he who had not died striking his last blow for Sparta was deemed unworthy of remembrance, and could expect no mercy from those who had loved him and sent him to the battlefield to conquer or die. So this was how the Spartans felt about their warriors, and you can imagine their indignation as well as their dismay when, in the year 371 BC, news reached Sparta that their army had been defeated at the Battle of Leuctra by the Boeotians, a rival Grecian state, and that 300 men had saved their lives in flight. The news was brought at the moment when some great festival was being celebrated in the city. The ephors commanded the names of the slain to be made known to their relatives, and the women were forbidden to mourn. But the mother of Eucrates could not at first hide her grief, and her neighbours said amongst themselves, "Why should she be sorrowful? Her son has died bravely. If he had disgraced himself by flight, then only would she have the right to mourn." The old man Phidon came in to see her, and found her spinning, busily engaged at her work, it is true, but with tears in her saddened eyes. He was a very stern old man, a Spartan every inch of him, and he spoke harshly to poor Ione. "Ione," he said, "not one single tear should course down your cheeks. Not one single pang of grief should assail your heart. I it is who should weep. I it is who should mourn, for Callias, my grandson, is not amongst the slain. Unlike your brave Eucrates, my Callias has not died at his post of duty. He lives, and by living he has brought dishonour and shame on his family. How can I meet him? What can I say to him? Nay, I will not look upon his face. I will not vouchsafe one word of greeting to him. His father was the glory of my life, but he is the soul of its shame. The gods have been cruel to me in my old age, but they have been merciful to you, Ione. For your son, death with honour. For my Callias, life with dishonour. His father won the crown of wild olive in the Olympic Games, and earned the right of fighting by the king's side, and died there, and I was proud of him. But woe is me that I cannot be proud of Callias." And Spartan mother as she truly was, Ione knew well that here was a grief far greater than her own loss of her beloved son. She brushed her last tear aside and tried to comfort old Phidon, whom she had known all of her life. Her son Eucrates and this very Callias had been friends together ever since they were children, and in the days gone by, Phidon and Ione's father had fought side by side for Sparta. "Maybe, Phidon," she said, "the gods have spared Callias and his comrades so that they may yet serve Sparta and help her to triumph over her enemies." But he shook his head and would hear no word of comfort, though as the days went by it seemed to ease his stern spirit to sit beside her and watch her at her work. And then she would speak to him of Callias and urge him not to be over hard on the lad when he returned. "You must pardon him, Phidon," she said. "Perchance he will live to do great things for Sparta." But the old man said proudly, "Nay, Ione, never a word will I speak to Callias again." And it was in vain that Ione pleaded for the friend of Eucrates, always imploring the old man to believe that the gods in their wisdom had preserved Callias for some splendid act of service and sacrifice yet to come. Full of these thoughts, and haunted by Phidon's unyielding severity, she had a strange dream one night. She dreamed that King Agesilaus was willing to pardon all those 300 soldiers who had fled from the field of Leuctra, but that Phidon interposed, and standing in the public assembly, gave his vote against the pardon. "My own grandson is one of the survivors," he cried. "Sparta may pardon him, but I never will." The next day she told her dream to Phidon, and described to him how with her mind's eye she had seen Callias standing lonely and forsaken, the only one of the 300 survivors who had been spurned and unforgiven. His loneliness stabbed her to her heart, more even than the loss of her son, and because there was no one else, she had been impelled to stand by his side, to greet him, to encourage him, to reassure him. And just as he lifted his head, bowed in grief and shame, she awoke. When Harraden heard her dream story, his stern heart was softened. "I will not turn from Callias," he said. "It may be that you are right, Ione. It may be that the gods will yet give him some great and glorious chance. I will steel my heart to receive him." So Ione triumphed at last, and truly her dream would seem to have been some kind of divination, for 2 or 3 days afterwards a decree was proposed by the king and passed in the assembly to the effect that all those who had fled from the field of Leuctra were to be pardoned and received home without dishonour. Ordinarily, all survivors of a defeat were subject to penalties of civil offence, and so this was quite an unusual proceeding. But no doubt it was thought dangerous to take stern measures against such a large number of Spartan citizens. Well, whatever the reason was, there were many glad hearts in Sparta that day, and old Harraden himself owned in secret to Ione that he longed to see Callias once more.
"For I must needs forgive him wholeheartedly,"
he said,
"since Sparta has forgiven him. But with my last breath I would tell you and all the world that I would far, far rather he had fallen by the side of brave Eucrates. That would have been my glory."
As soon as news had come of the defeat of the Spartan army, the whole remaining military force of Sparta was sent to the rescue, and after some time returned to Sparta, bringing back the survivors from the disastrous field of Leuctra. Then Spartan hearts were softened, and mothers, wives and sisters stood waiting to greet those whom the gods had spared for future service. But Ione sat at home spinning. There were no tears in her eyes now, and her countenance was lit up by a calm pride. She had learnt to be glad that she had no one to meet that day. Suddenly the door opened, and Harraden came in. His manner was strangely excited.
"Callias is not amongst us," he cried. "I've asked for him, and no one knows. Could there have been some mistake, I wonder? Is it possible that—"
At that moment there came a loud knock at the door, and Ione opened it to Timotheus, a neighbour's son.
"Greetings to the mother of Eucrates,"
he said as he stood before Ione.
"I am from Leuctra. I saw Eucrates fighting in the thickest of the fray. I saw him fall, and there fell another by his side, fighting as gallantly as he, his comrade in death as well as in life."
"And who was it that died with my brave son?" asked Ione, whose hands were pressed together deep into her breast, and whose face was ashen, though tearless.
"It was Callias,"
answered the young man.
"Farewell, honoured mother of Eucrates. I must go and seek Harraden to tell him."
But Harraden rose to his full height, and there was a smile of triumph on his face and a new life in his bearing.
"Harraden has heard the news," he said, "and he thanks the gods for this crowning mercy. For though in his inmost heart he would have fain seen the face of his grandson once more, there was something dearer to him than the face of Callias. It was the honour of Callias."
Then, turning to Ione, he said,
"Now we can think of them together, and share our pride in them, Ione."
For one fleeting moment Ione saw a vision of her young, fair son falling before the foe, but her voice never faltered as she said, "Yes, we can share our pride in them." That was the true Spartan tribute to the heroes of Leuctra. You see, the Spartans would not admit of despair in their lives. They believed that while there was yet strength in the body, there must needs be hope in the heart that the victory would be won. And so it was the duty of a true Spartan to fight and conquer and live or to die, striving to conquer to the very last, with no thought of any possibility of failure. What do you think about this grand old Spartan code of honour? Do you not think that we ourselves, each in our own way, young and old, man and woman, boy and girl, may find something helpful in it to bring to the service of our country? End of chapter 11.